The first irregularity was logged on a maintenance clipboard rather than in a patient chart. A faint pencil mark beside room 312 on the east wing of St. Bartholomew Regional, a floor reserved for post-operative overflow that had been officially closed since late February due to staffing shortages. And yet every morning during the first week of March 2019, the night cleaning crew noted the same thing with increasing confusion. The bed neatly lowered, the thin hospital blanket folded with the careful precision of someone accustomed to military corners, the pillow slightly indented as if a head had rested there for hours, while the rest of the room remained untouched, the sink dry, the trash empty, the heart monitor dark and unplugged, and the door still sealed with the yellow plastic tag that indicated no patient had been admitted. At first, the charge nurse assumed a paperwork issue, perhaps a temporary admission that never reached the digital system, and she made a casual inquiry during morning briefing, but no one recalled escorting a patient to that room. No transport order existed, no wristband was scanned, and the security badge logs showed no authorized staff entries during the overnight hours beyond routine hallway patrols that never opened the door, which should have left the seal intact, and yet each morning it was found carefully snapped open and laid across the handle, not broken, not forced, just removed as if someone had known exactly how to disengage it, without damaging hospital property. By the 8th of March, the pattern was impossible to ignore, the same signs of overnight use appearing between 11 in the evening and just before 5 in the morning when environmental services made their rounds. The temperature in the room consistently 2 degrees warmer than the surrounding wing, despite the thermostat being fixed to central control. The faint smell of antiseptic lingering in the air as though freshly cleaned skin had rested there. And one morning, a single long dark hair discovered on the pillow, despite the hospital requiring caps in all sterile zones. A hair that no staff member recognized, and that did not match the blonde and brown shades of the nurses on shift that week. Administration initiated a quiet internal review, less out of fear and more out of liability concern, checking surveillance cameras that lined the East Wing corridors. But what they found created more questions than clarity. As the footage from 11 each night showed the hallway lights dimming to overnight mode, the floors empty, the hum of air systems visible only through subtle shifts of shadow. And then at roughly 11:30, a slow flicker would appear near the end of the corridor by room 312. Not a figure exactly, but a disturbance in the digital feed, as though something passed between frames too quickly to register fully, leaving behind a warped shimmer that lasted less than a second before the hall returned to stillness. Security first blamed aging cameras, then compression artifacts, then network lag. But when technicians replaced the unit outside room 312, the shimmer continued to appear at nearly the same time each night, always followed by the door seal being found removed in the morning and the bed once again prepared for use. And it was at this point that Nurse Elena Morales, a veteran of 12 years on night shift, volunteered to observe personally, not out of bravado but from a deep practical frustration with unexplained hospital mysteries, believing that someone, perhaps a homeless intruder or a confused former patient, had found a quiet place to sleep. On March 12th, she stationed herself at the nurse's desk with direct line of sight down the East Wing, the corridor bathed in soft fluorescent blue, the silence broken only by distant monitor beeps from the active floors below. And she documented the hours carefully, writing in her notebook at 12:30, 1:30, 2:30, noting no movement, no sound, only the faint whistle of the ventilation system and the occasional echo of a security cart rolling somewhere far away. It was at approximately 3:17 in the morning when she first noticed the temperature shift, not in the room but in the hallway itself. a subtle wave of warmth passing over her arms like someone opening a door to a heated room, followed by a smell that did not belong in any hospital, something like damp soil mixed with old disinfectant. And when she lifted her eyes toward the end of the corridor, she saw what she later described in her statement as a shape that refused to fully exist, darker than the surrounding shadows yet thin, elongated, almost like a person standing sideways, its outline gently trembling as though struggling to remain solid. She did not hear footsteps, did not see the door move, but the shape seemed to slide forward in a slow, unnatural motion until it aligned with room 312. And then, without any visible interaction, the door seal simply loosened and dropped to the handle, and the door opened inward by a few inches as if invited. Elena remained frozen, her instincts screaming not to approach, not to speak, not to draw attention to herself, and the shape drifted inside, the door closing behind it with a soft hydraulic hush. And in that moment the corridor returned to normal temperature, the smell vanished, and the silence felt heavier than before, as if the air itself had thickened. She waited nearly 20 minutes before forcing herself to walk down the hall, each step echoing louder than it should have. And when she reached room 312, she found the door closed, the seal resting intact across the handle again as though it had never been disturbed. Yet when she pressed her ear to the door, she swore she could hear breathing, slow and deliberate, the faint rustle of fabric shifting against sheets. Hospital protocol demanded she report it immediately, and within minutes security arrived, cutting the seal and entering the room with flashlights drawn. But the bed was empty, the sheets cool to the touch, the pillows smooth, no indentation, no warmth, no sign that anyone had been there. And yet the monitoring system briefly flickered to life on its own, displaying a flatline pulse for less than 2 seconds before shutting down again. From that night forward, the occurrences intensified, the shimmer appearing not only outside room 312, but occasionally drifting down the hallway before snapping back toward the unassigned room. Several staff members reporting cold spots near the doorway, followed by sudden waves of warmth. One orderly claiming he heard someone whisper his name in a voice that sounded like it was underwater, and another nurse finding a faint handprint on the inside of the glass window of the door, long thin fingers smeared slightly as though pressed from the other side. Records were pulled to determine the history of the room, revealing that 312 had once been part of a respiratory isolation ward during a flu outbreak nearly 20 years earlier, and that one patient in particular, a woman named Marjorie Hale, had been transferred there after complications following routine surgery, developing severe pneumonia that worsened rapidly. And according to archived notes, she frequently complained that she felt forgotten, that no one came at night, that she woke unable to breathe and believed she was being left to die alone. Her death certificate listed time of death as 3:23 in the morning. Further review of nursing logs from that period showed something unsettling. Repeated entries noting that her bed appeared disturbed each morning despite overnight staff reporting no checks due to isolation protocol confusion during the outbreak, meaning for several nights no one had entered the room. And yet the bed was consistently found warm, the blankets folded differently, as though someone had been awake and shifting for hours. After Elena's encounter, administration ordered room 312 permanently sealed, installing a reinforced door and disabling the internal monitoring system. And for 2 weeks the activity ceased, no shimmer, no temperature shifts, no disturbed bedding, until April 1st, when a patient recovering from surgery was temporarily placed in the neighboring room 314 due to overflow, and reported that someone lay down beside her in the dark around 3 in the morning, the mattress dipping slowly as if another body had joined her, accompanied by the sound of labored breathing and the faint smell of antiseptic mixed with earth. And when she reached out, her hand met nothing but cold air. Security footage from that night showed the shimmer once again drifting down the corridor, stopping not at the sealed room but at 314, lingering for nearly 10 seconds before vanishing. From then on, the presence no longer seemed confined to its original space, appearing sporadically across the East Wing, always around the same time, always leaving behind signs of a bed briefly occupied, a pillow indented, a sheet warmed, sometimes a faint dark hair, sometimes a shallow impression like a hand gripping the mattress edge. The hospital quietly closed the wing indefinitely. What remains most disturbing is not simply that something unseen appeared to sleep there each night, but what Alina discovered months later while reviewing old patient advocacy files. Finding a handwritten complaint from Marjorie Hale dated just days before her death, stating that every night around 3 in the morning she felt someone sit beside her bed, that she heard breathing that was not her own, and that she believed another patient was being left in the dark to suffer just as she was. A presence she described as thin, cold, and smelling faintly of cleaning chemicals and wet soil. Something that seemed confused, restless, and desperate for a place to rest. In life, she believed she was being visited by another forgotten patient, but in death it appeared she had become the one wandering, repeating the same lonely ritual, finding a bed, lying down briefly as if trying to remember what it felt like to be cared for, and leaving before anyone could truly see her. While the hospital's records show that every bed she appeared in belonged to a patient who later reported vivid dreams of suffocation, abandonment, and waking alone in a dark room, unable to call for help. The last documented incident occurred in November 2020, when a newly installed motion sensor in the closed East Wing activated repeatedly at 3:20 in the morning for 7 consecutive nights, registering the weight of a human body settling onto the mattress in room 312, despite the room containing nothing but an empty metal bed frame. And when security entered on the 8th night, they found the mattress warm, the faint outline of a body slowly fading from the fabric, and the yellow seal once again resting gently across the door handle, not broken, not forced, simply removed by something that had learned long ago how to leave its room.